Hey, you guys, welcome to episode 2 of the Tony McNaboe Show. I'm Tony McNaboe. I have a very long show today. There's not a lot of time to fuck around. Let's get right to it. Give a hand to the band. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. See, I'm doing that thing now that Hillary does. I'm pointing at you. I'm pointing at you. I see you. My eyes are agog. I'm so surprised that you're here. For who? Me? You're all here for me? Wow, this is incredible. Okay, today we're gonna talk about Barbra Streisand, we're gonna talk about Barry Gibb and satanic possession. Right before I share with you some of my greatest secrets of how to stay single and lose all your friends by the time you're 40. Then I'm gonna talk for way too long about the new Father John Misty record. It's gonna be fucking great. Are you ready? Let's go. You guys, do me a favor, please, and go and listen. Well, first of all, hi. How are you? Hopefully you're good. I hope you're in a happy place. I hope you're doing something that you enjoy, and I appreciate you having me along. And if those things aren't true, then I hope that this show helps you feel better. I'm not going to give you any like 4-H club inspirational shit or anything like that, but maybe I'll make you laugh, maybe I'll make you think about some stuff and whatever. So just thanks for listening. Second of all, you can now email my show at iloveyourshow.tony@gmail.com. And that's fucking real. I'm not joking. iloveyourshow.tony@gmail.com. You can send me comments or questions. You can ask me about things that I've said, and you can ask to have those clarified. You can suggest things that maybe you'd like to hear me talk about. Comments, questions, things like that. If they're cool, then I'll read them on my show, and I'll reply to them and respond to them, and that'll be fun, right? We can have some interaction. And the cool thing about this is that if you're you want to send me some hateful shit, some vitriolic, hateful shit about how much you dislike me or my show, that's cool too. I'm open to that. The only condition is that you have to type in, I love your show, Tony, at gmail.com first, and profess your love for my show before you can do that. And that's just sort of fun for me. So get at me. All right. Third of all, will you please do me a favor and go and listen to this song by Barbra Streisand and Barry Gibb. It's called Guilty. And oh my God, it has been in my head for 3 days. It's insane. And it is so good. And I knew it. I've known it my whole life. I just was reminded of it recently. I was coming back from a movie. I went to see a movie a little bit ago with a few friends. I'll get to that. But I was coming back, getting a ride back here from my friend Trent. And Trent had this playlist of just songs that were written by Barry Gibb for other people. And this song was on it, and it fucking blew my mind. Again, I had forgotten about it, and it came back, and I was like, man, it is so fucking good. It is insanely good. The melody in the verse is crazy with the way the chords play along. The hook is incredibly, it is masterful. It's fucking masterful song. It is a master class in great songwriting. And I know there's those of you, oh, he's going to ask me to listen to Barbra Streisand songs. He's so old. Fuck you, man. You try to tell me that Barbra Streisand doesn't sing her ass off. Sing her ass off. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that every song she did was good. It wasn't. At least not in my opinion. But when Barbra Streisand was on, she was fucking on fire. All right? I got no problems with Barbra Streisand. And if you don't believe me, all right, if you're one of those, do this, all right? Just wait. Give life some time to come in and fuck with you. Because it will. It always does. That's what we always got to keep in mind. When we're up, we got to remember that we're just up for a little while. And when we're down, we got to remember that we're just down for a little while. Okay? So if you're up and you think that I'm, so wrong to suggest that you listen to a Barbra Streisand song, just wait. Wait for life. It'll swoop in. All right? Break up with your girlfriend. Okay? Break up with your boyfriend. Or even worse, you get in a worst case scenario, you're in a divorce, whatever. Or lose somebody, lose a friend, lose a family member, somebody that you love so much. All right? And let yourself wait until you're in. Get yourself real fucking sad. All right? And then go and listen to The Way We Were by Barbra Streisand. Okay? And you just fucking try. Just try to get from the beginning to the end of that song without falling completely to pieces. You fucking pussy, all right? So do that first. Show me that you can get through The Way We Were by Barbra Streisand at the lowest point in your... That's the litmus test. Pass that, and then you can come talk to me about how Barbra Streisand's fucking whack, and it's some shit that you shouldn't pay any attention to. Otherwise, go listen to Guilty. You're gonna love it. It's fucking awesome. It's so awesome. In fact, like I have been so obsessed with it over the last few days. I reached out to my friend Sarah, who is just my best girl in the whole world. I love Sarah so much, and Sarah Hallie Richardson is her name. And I should talk about that here anyways, because Sarah is like, Sarah is my favorite singer. She's like among my peers and my contemporaries. I think Sarah is just the greatest in the fucking world. And even beyond my own little circle of peers and contemporaries, I just think that she's one of the most gifted voices I've ever heard in my entire life. And Sarah and I have been working toward doing a project together where we're going to make a record of duets that we have either written together or written separately that we bring together, because she's also an incredible songwriter in her own right. And so we're going to make this record, and we want to have our songs that we've written and arranged together and then go about things, but we also need to have like a cover or two. So I was like, yo, we have to do Guilty by Barry Gibb and Barbra Streisand. And she took like 2 hours to get back. She probably rolled her eyes the same way as you. But then eventually she was like, gladly will do that. And Sarah, by the way, while I'm talking about Sarah, you need to check Sarah out. She is like on par with like Joni Mitchell and Barbra Streisand. See, I'll throw that back in there. Joni Mitchell, I mean, she sings like a bird. It sounds so natural. When it sounds like she was just born with this thing, and it's this natural thing that she just does because that's what she is supposed to do. It's such her pitch is perfect and her vibrato is so beautiful. Go Google her, find her on YouTube, find her on whatever music listening platform you like, and check out, her record, Phoenix was the last record she did, and it is so insanely good. She had an incredible band playing on it. This kid, Sean Moran, who's a great arranger, and DJ Moore played drums on it. DJ Moore, who's one of my favorite drummers on the planet, and also plays in this band called Jaw Gems. See, ding, 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 Jaw Gems made the show twice in a row. I've only had 2 episodes, and Jaw Gem has been mentioned in both of them. I love Jaw Gems. If you like Dilla beats and hip-hop, and if you just like EDM music, or if you just smoke a ton of weed and like to just sort of vibe out, any of that, you will love Jaw Gems. Go check out Jaw Gems too. But otherwise, you have to go and find my girl, Sarah Hallie Richardson, S-A-R-A, no H, Sarah with no H, S-A-R-A, Hallie, H-A-L-L-I-E, Richardson. And Sarah and I will hopefully have like this new kind of project happening by the fall or winter coming up. And I just love her. And so even Sarah was like, yeah, you're right. This is great. We have to do this. So we went to this movie. I don't go to the movies ever. It takes like a big event to get me out to the movies, but I really wanted to see this particular thing. And I'm never going to this isn't going to be like movie reviews all the time, because I don't go enough. I'm just not, I'm not that interested that I would be willing to like spend time every episode talking about a fucking movie. I've just got other things that I'm doing. But we went to see this movie called Hereditary, and we started by going out and having some having some beers. Like 4 of us, good friends of mine, went and got some beers. They got dinner. I opted out of dinner. It was a Mexican restaurant. It makes my stomach really unsettled when I eat Mexican food. See, I have a hiatal hernia. A hiatal hernia is when, well, we'll get into that another time. Now, fuck it. Let's get into it now. I have a hiatal hernia, okay? We've all got our obstacles in life. I was trying to talk to a kid about this today, this 16-year-old kid. I'm helping him try to finish his English paper, and we've all got obstacles. All right, we've all got fucking obstacles. You know what? One of the ones among many that I've got, I have a hiatal hernia. This means that this little kind of vice that exists at your sternum that prevents your stomach from joining your esophagus, well, mine is offset. Okay, so acid reflux is very dangerous to me. And this is not a fucking age thing, okay? This is not some old man shit. This is something that I've had. This is just a thing that happens. Okay, so if I eat, say, tomatoes or raw green peppers or raw onions or some shit like that, it gives me fucking heartburn. And I can't get heartburn because what happens when I get heartburn is that that acid reflux, it not only gets up into the high part of my stomach, which is what's called heartburn. No, it doesn't stop there because I have this this hiatal hernia, this herniated fucking thing that allows it to go all the way up into my esophagus. That shit makes my esophagus fucking spaz. And then you know what happens? It closes. It closes and I can't breathe and I'm suffocating. Oh, you never eat. I've never seen you eat anything. You barely ever eat. Go ahead. It must be so easy for you. You get to have your little fucking salad with tomatoes and basil, and you get to have your barbecue food and everything else. Well, you know, the doctor told me 3 years ago, I can't have any more tomatoes. Tomatoes are enemy number 1. You know what that means for me? I'm fucking half Italian. I don't know if you can figure that out from my name, but I'm fucking half Italian. No more tomato sauce. No more, that means no more spaghetti and meatballs. No more lasagna. No more pizza. No more chicken parmesan. I'm sick of this shit. I can't have these things anymore. And I say, oh, I'll just have a nice little piece of grilled chicken, plain old grilled chicken with some salt and fucking pepper. If I'm lucky, put a little lemon on it and cook it so that the acidity of the lemon cooks off. And then on the side, I'll just have some cauliflower. You know, I can't have mashed potatoes and stuff. I can't have these like really like, what are they called? There's simple carbs and then there's complex carbs. I can't have complex carbs. Those fuck me up too. Bread, things like that. I can't have those. And I have to be careful when I eat. It's just so easy for you, isn't it? You can eat whatever you want. Well, think about it this way. Eating, fucking eating. And I'll say it one more time. Eating can fucking kill me. And I have to be mindful of that. I eat the wrong thing, my throat closes, I can't fucking breathe, and then add that to my fucking irregular heartbeat, and then that starts to freak out. Next thing I know, I'm in the fucking hospital. All because I wanted to have a fucking slice of pizza. And you all look upon me with from your high and mighty places. Must be so nice for you. Go ahead, make fun of me. But I'll tell you this, I have taken this lot in life. This hiatal hernia is my lot in life among many others. But look at me, I've persevered. Here I am, I still, with a hiatal hernia, I have found a way to claw my way up into the upper echelons of life to have myself a podcast. And look at me here now. Nothing can keep me down. Not a hiatal hernia, not anything. And I just want to switch back now. I've gotten very emotional. I just want to talk about this playlist that Trent had when he was driving me over here. It was really wonderful. See, now I'm calming down. This is good because I can't get too excited either. And so here we are driving back from the movie, and we're listening to this playlist that he made, again, of songs that Barry Gibb had written. Man, it was really nice, really good. So we were coming back from watching Hereditary, okay? And I want to say this about Hereditary. Here's my review, and I'm not going to spoil anything. If you've seen the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, if you want to see the movie, if you don't want to see the movie, you can still keep listening for the next 5 minutes because I'm not going to fuck up anything for any of you, okay? Here's what I'll say about Hereditary. I have no fucking idea what the fuck happened in that fucking movie. I don't know what the fuck I watched or what it was trying to tell me. Something fucking weird switched over in my head when I was watching this movie. It was filled with all kinds of images and themes that I should have been deeply disturbed by. But yet, I wasn't. In fact, I found it sort of comforting. And not only that, but I began by the end of the movie to relate to it and to root for what I think was supposed to be sort of the antagonist, or thematically the antagonist in the movie anyway. I began to sort of root for it. I began to say, I'm into this. I like what you're doing here. What else do you have? And I felt this like numbness over my body. It started to come on like over like 3/4 of the way through the movie. I felt this numbness over my body, and then a numbness in my brain where my brain kind of got really simple. It felt a lot like I was high, like I'd smoked weed, but I hadn't. I just had this really deep body buzz and this really deep numbness to my brain. And I watched this course of action take place over the last third of the movie. And instead of finding it troubling or scary, I just found it really interesting. And then at the very end, and again, I'm not going to give anything away, so don't worry, but I'll say this, at the very end of the movie, there's a character or a subject in the movie who this event takes place, and I thought to myself, good for you. That was my thought at the end of Hereditary. I thought, good for you. And then this song began to play. And I'm not going to give that away either, but as the credits began to roll, this song began to play. And this was a song that is so deeply tied to my life, that is tied to so many different things. And it gave this juxtaposition that I think was like the proverbial nail in the coffin. This song began to play, and everything kind of went insane in my brain for a second. But here came this feeling in this moment of complete and total joy. I felt such joy at the end of Hereditary. As the credits started to roll, I remember smiling. I couldn't stop smiling. And the happiness that I felt in my spirit was probably like the truest happiness that I've felt in like 5 years. I just was incredibly happy. And my friends that got up, they went to walk by me out of the aisle, and I didn't, but I wanted to stand up and hug them, tell them that I love them. But they just walked past me. They looked at me smiling. They probably thought I was just being some asshole, and they went about their way out of the theater. And I followed them by, like a minute or two. I went a little while behind them. And I just couldn't stop smiling. I just couldn't stop being so happy. But at the same time, once I got back outside to them, and we went back to the same restaurant to have another round of beer, I also had this incredible disconnect from the people I was with and from the world. I had a complete disconnect. So to summarize, like, I watched this movie that should have made me incredibly disturbed, but it just made me very happy. And also in the process, I felt a numbness in my body while I was watching it. And then when I left, I felt completely disconnected with these humans that were around me, totally disconnected. But at the same time, I still felt complete inner joy and peace. And I, just like what I saw in the movie, I have no fucking idea what that meant either. I have no idea what that means. I don't know if it's still happening. I don't know if something tripped my wires in the course of that movie. Something got unplugged and plugged back in when I was watching that movie. I felt it happen. And all I can hope is that I go through the rest of my life without sleepwalking into somebody else's room and murdering them. That's really all I can hope for now. There's my review of Hereditary. Ever since I saw Hereditary, wonderful movie. Makes me hope that I can spend the rest of my life not murdering anybody else in a total blackout sleep. Wake up covered in blood, and have no fucking idea what happened. But don't forget, also have that sense of pure joy in the pit of my stomach. Okay? So, there's Hereditary. I'm not going to give movie reviews every week. I never go to the fucking movies. I hate the movies. In fact, I always prefer to watch a movie by myself with headphones on. I can control the volume, and I can control when I need to stop it or pause it, go take a piss, do whatever. I always want to watch movies by myself. It takes a big event to get me out to the theater. This movie, Hereditary, I thought was going to be one. Actually, maybe it was. Shit, it could have been a bigger event than I even know yet. Time will tell. However, here's something I will review because it's going to lead to my next subject. Okay, I will give a review of this thing that we have here in my hometown where I live in Portland, Maine. Every first weekend of June, we have what's called the Old Port Fest. And the Old Port Fest is just like the same shit you have in your city. The Old Port Fest is where they close down the streets of downtown. They put up some stages. They have some live music. And it gets to be this confusing sort of, demographic of like, well, there's a bunch of adults who have been completely overserved, and then there's also some children who are getting their faces painted like tigers and zebras, and we all try to just coexist for the day. I fucking hate kids when I'm trying to drink. I love kids, don't get me wrong. So many of my friends have kids who I love so deeply right now. But when I'm trying to drink with those same friends, I fucking hate when their kids are around. I fucking hate kids at parties. I fucking hate kids at barbecues. This is why I don't get invited to anything anymore, because all my friends have kids. I can't go to a barbecue and just act the way that I'm accustomed to acting with my friends. You know, they all are like, you don't know how to act. What do you mean I don't know how to act? This is how we've acted our whole fucking life. Now all of a sudden you're gonna tell me that I can't act like this anymore just because you have some kids with you? Just because you wanna fucking have some potato salad? Just because everybody wants to sit down and talk about the potato salad? That's what it is now. I go to parties now, and it's no more, you don't do keg stands anymore. You're not allowed to like suggest that the women like take off their tops or, I don't know, throw a beer bottle off the wall and yell party at the top of your lungs and then kick somebody in the balls and see if you can start a riot. You're not allowed to do that anymore. That doesn't fucking happen at a party anymore. Now, everybody sits out on the porch and they talk about the fucking potato salad and the macaroni salad and how good it is. Who brought this? That's what you get. If you're listening to this show and you're under 25 years old, I want you to know you've probably had a good time already. Pack in the next 5 years with as much fucking partying and psychotic behavior as you possibly can when you go to parties, because right around 30, everything is gonna fucking change. And you're gonna have little kids running around. You're gonna be hammered, having a hard time standing up. Believe me, this is how it goes. Okay, let's get into this. This is how it goes. It starts with your friends have children. Now, your friends having children, the first time it happens, you're like, oh my God, dude, I am so happy for you. This is a fucking incredible thing. Look at this little living thing, this little human. And I can even see, like, it sort of looks like you. This is incredible, and I'm so proud of you. I'm getting teary-eyed. Like, this is like an extension of you. You've made another extension of you. I'm so happy for you. And then, secretly, everybody, I defy anybody to tell me that they've been in the room with their best friend of their whole life. And I can only speak as a male. I don't know how I don't know how you guys work, but I can just speak for us. You've been in the room, the child is born, you walk in, you're so happy for he and his wife, or he and his girlfriend, or whatever the case may be. Really, truly, like at this point, you're legitimately happy for them. And you walk in, you say, oh my God, this is incredible. And you hand the child back to, not your friend, you hand the child back to the mother. Tell me I'm wrong. We don't do this on purpose. It's human nature. You hand the child back to the mother. And then you wait for like the grandparents to come in, some other people to want to hold the child, and your buddy gets distracted for a second. Tell me that you have not in that moment said, you want to go outside for a drink real quick? We'll go, there's a bar on the corner, we'll go have a drink, I'll congratulate you. Right? And still at the core of it, we really just still want to fucking party together. We always still want to go and have a drink. Now, some of you have cool friends that have been like, yeah, let's go. I've been here since 4 o'clock this morning. Let's go do that. And then the majority of them are sort of like, my wife's been through a lot. I think it's important that I'm with my family right now. And you say, oh, that's great. I respect that. Look at you, man. You're really growing up. And you act like you mean it, but in your head, you're like, what a fucking pussy. And so, let's see, in most cases, a year goes by, you watch this child begin to, dominate all of the time of your friend that you've grown up with, loving the time that you spend together. And now all they can do is stay at home with this baby. They can't go out anymore because, you know why? If they go out, they feel like their wife will get mad because the wife has to stay home and breastfeed and do all this stuff. And for that reason, it's like, oh, sorry, Tony, I don't have time for you, right? As though like, what about all the sacrifices I made when we were teenagers? What about all the times and you're puking into a toilet and I'm holding your chin up so that your lips aren't resting on the actual toilet bowl seat with all the piss and the pubic hair, and I'm holding your face up so that you can vomit and get all this poison out of your system that I helped put in. And hopefully we won't have to call an ambulance or the police or anything like that. We can just get you cleaned up and put you to bed. And it's a lot of work. And not to mention like all your little adolescent little grievances. I'm so sad about this. I'm so sad about that. And I'd sit with you. Let's talk about it, man. I'll get you through this. Oh, I loved her. I really loved her. This girl 6 girlfriends ago before you ended up with your wife, who now you love so much that you can't leave her for one night on a fucking Tuesday. But I years ago sat with you. Oh, I loved her so much, this girl, and she broke my heart. And I'm like, yeah, man, I understand. I understand. All these things that I went through for you. And now all of a sudden, I need you. I haven't seen you in 3 months, maybe 4 months or more. That's unusual to me. I'm asking you for one fucking night on a Tuesday. Can't we just go fucking bowling? Why can't we just go fucking bowling like we used to? But no, nope. You have to be there and committed to your wife, and because she was up all last night apparently, which I don't care about. She was up all last night, and so now I have to be responsible for taking care of the baby while she sleeps. Fine. Eventually you fucking get used to it, right? Eventually you get used to it, and that first year goes by. You're finally adjusted. You're finally able to learn how to behave when you're invited over to their house for brunch or for something like that. And the child might be starting to act a little bit like a, interesting human that you might want to interact with, sometimes not. But so you try to interact with them, but you've adjusted to like how much now that you can't try to sneak your friend out the door for a quick shot in the driveway of their home while you're having dinner at their house that their wife cooked for you. You eventually realize that that's not appropriate anymore. You don't like it. And frankly, you don't have to like it. I still don't. But you do have to adjust to it. So eventually you do, and then a year's gone by and you've adjusted. Only right in time for about 3 months later, when you find out that they're fucking doing it again. The same exact thing. They're gonna have another one of these little things. Now this time's different. The second time, you don't go to the fucking hospital. You might text them, congratulations. Saw on Facebook the baby was born. Nice job, so-and-so, congratulations. That's about the extent of it. And by this point, you've kind of had enough. At this point, you resent the wife. Not only once has she done this to you, but now twice. And you're sort of like, less and less you're getting invited over for dinner, because even though you know how to act, you don't always execute it correctly. Sometimes you still try to sneak your friend out the door to their driveway to get them to do a shot with you while their wife is steaming asparagus in the kitchen. And if you don't do that, you get, in my case, sort of tired of them saying no over and over again. So you stop leaving the booze in the driveway in your car, and you start bringing him with you. And you say things like, well, if you're not going to do it, someone's got to do it. And you're doing shots by yourself in their kitchen while she's trying to make like a balsamic reduction to put over the roast cauliflower or mashed potatoes or something like that. And so then before you know it, no one really feels comfortable with you being just among their family and their 2 kids. And now maybe their kids are, let's fast forward, now maybe their kids are, say, 2 and 4 or 4 and 6. We're going to go within, a 2-year increment. They stopped feeling comfortable with you in their home as individuals, but everybody still kind of likes you at this point. Everybody still remembers how much fun you were, and everybody still remembers the things that you've been through, which is nice of them, by the way, during the period when they still remembered those kinds of things. But they still remember that you meant something to them. So while they're not comfortable with you being in their kitchen with only their wife and their children, everybody's kind of still comfortable with letting you know when there's a gathering or a cookout, as it's called. We used to call it a keg party, but now it's called a cookout. Fine, I don't care, that's fine. I get to see my friends, and usually most of my childhood friends that have kids, well, so have my other childhood friends, and they're all in this fucking thing together. And they're fucking elated. They love to get to a place where they can all bring their kids around. Do you guys know, you guys like me, do you guys know that text message, that group message that you get where it's like, hey guys, having some people over for burgers and beers tomorrow. Weather's gonna be beautiful for a Sunday. We're gonna light the fire at night. Come on by. Great, you're fucking psyched. And then you get that fucking message in the group text that says something like, cool to bring the kids? They never call them kids. They say kiddos. Cool to bring the kiddos? And you go, fuck. And then sure enough, everybody's like, bidding, 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 bidding. I was thinking the same thing. And then you finally get the ultimate reply, like, it is a kid-friendly party. And you're like, God damn. So anyway, you still go to it because you think maybe these kids, if you can sort of in a sneaky way get off to the side, steal some of the cake, and feed it to them, not only are they going to think that you're cool as hell and they're always going to love Uncle Tony, but it's also going to put them into that sugar high and then the sugar crash. And that's what people like us want. We need the sugar crash. We need these kids to go to fucking bed so we can sit around and drink with our friends. But it never happens that way. Someone catches you, or sometimes in my case, when they see me just talking to a group of children at a party, usually the parents start to, they never say to me, Tony, what are you doing? They always just do that passive aggressive thing where they just call their child away from me. And they think I don't understand what they're doing, but I do. But anyway, you're trying to somehow remove the children from this equation, and it's near impossible. But as far as you're at a party, and I'm just partying. And so eventually I walk over to the stereo, which at almost every point is loudly playing, mind you, loudly playing. But it's not playing good music. It's not playing, some great shit that we wanted, used to listen to at a party. It's not playing that. It's playing like whatever Disney movie or whatever cartoon is on the TV so that these fucking little kids can run around. And every now and then when their shitty little attention spans stop for just long enough, they can stop in front of the TV, stare at the screen, and hear the volume. That's the only reason that the stereo is being used, is so that they can stare at the screen and hear the volume of the song before they run away, break something that some other kid has been building for 15 minutes. That creates a meltdown. Then they run away. I've got a child crying over here because their Lego castle got knocked down by Jimmy. And now Jimmy's parents are yelling at Jimmy. And then you know what happens to Jimmy inevitably? You guessed it, Jimmy starts crying. So I've got this kid over here crying about their fucking Lego castle that Jimmy fucking wrecked. I got Jimmy over here crying. And you know what? Their parents are usually my friend. That's usually my friend that I want to hang out with. And Jimmy starts having a meltdown, and then this conversation starts. Do you want to do this, or do you want to go? We can put you in the car. We can go. Do you want to go home? Do you want to go home? And Jimmy's crying, and meanwhile, I'm over underneath a tree by myself, sort of hiding, watching, and I'm going, no, don't go home, don't go home. And I realize, like, me and Jimmy are very similar in this moment, and I am depending solely. My happiness, my day is depending on whatever fucking Jimmy, this 5-year-old little shit who just kicked over a fucking Lego castle for no other reason but to be a dick. Now I'm having to hinge everything on 5-year-old Jimmy and whether or not he wants to go home. Because I've seen this movie before. It really is this. They're saying, are we gonna go home or are we gonna stay here? And I've seen it where Jimmy's like, or the proverbial Jimmy is like, I want to go home. They're like, okay, we're going to go. And then they start capping up all their Tupperware, you know, either taking leftovers or collecting the Tupperware that they brought their watermelon salad in. And all because of Jimmy, now my friend Jeff is going home. And you know what happens when Jeff goes home? You know what happens when Jeff goes home? I'll give you a second. Everybody knows what happens when the first guy goes home. What happens next? Take a minute. That's right. They all start to go. And then it's a fucking exodus. Because everybody's like, you know what, honey? It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. Prime time, in my opinion. You know what, honey? It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. We've been here since 2. Maybe it's time that we go home. The kids really are getting tired and restless, and they're getting too much sun. We really should get the kids home. And everybody, one of two things start happening for me now. Either everybody starts filing out, and I find myself drunk at the end of a cookout, which I'm now realizing was a cookout and not a party. I lived several years of my life not knowing the difference between the two. And I would just go to cookouts and I'd think they were parties. And I'd have to find out eventually that they weren't a party, they were a cookout. And I could never fucking understand the difference. So what would happen to me, for instance, one time I was at a cookout that I thought was a party. And I thought it was a party for good reason. And that's because it had a fucking keg at it. They got a keg for their cookout. Now, if you get a keg and you tell me that you're having a keg, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And I got there. Oh my God, there was dozens of kids. They were fucking everywhere. It was awful. It was horrible. So for like 3 hours, I just spent basically just trying to get drunk and find good conversations with friends that were also there without kids. I tried to find where we could smoke cigarettes, maybe do some pot, and drink excessively, and that's what I did. And then before I knew it, it was like 3 p.m, and it was just starting to get really busy, and more kids were showing up. And I realized that I was drunk. I had been overserved at that point. And it was early. And so I was engaged in this game with the bean bags. You know, you throw it across the thing into the hole. And me, I'm pretty competitive. I don't like losing. And I also don't like the games that I'm playing in getting fucked up midway through. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's street hockey. I don't care if it's ping pong. I don't care what the fuck it is. I don't like shit getting fucked with halfway through. Once there's a score established and you know your competition. So here we were playing this game, and here parades in this young lady with her daughter, who I would guess her daughter was probably 3 or 4, maybe. She was a toddler, and she came in and she started picking up all the bean bags that were, you know, in that game, they have to lay where they're laying. That's how you keep score. And she came over and started picking up all the bean bags. And the mother, instead of being responsible and a you know, good adult in that situation and saying, honey, don't touch that. Those are somebody else's. That's somebody else's game. Don't do that. She treated it in the same way that, like, I hate when people treat their kids like the same way that people treat fucking dogs when you're walking a dog around the boulevard or in a park and you've got your dog on a leash and your dog gets really curious about something. It smells something, somebody's eating something. You all know this, you've seen it. The dog is walking by and the owner has it on a leash, or maybe even worse, it doesn't. But the dog gets curious about whatever you're doing. That's natural. I don't blame the dog for that. I love dogs. I like dogs more than I like children, way more. And I don't blame the dog for this, but the dog gets curious about what you're doing, so it tries to come over and smell whatever's going on. And you're sort of like this dog, I don't know this dog, but this dog's in my space. I have food around me, or I'm just trying to stand here and listen to some music or whatever. I don't need this dog getting all up on me. But that person gets that smile on their face, like, oh, isn't that cute? My dogs just, we're learning about people, and they just let the dog sort of like jump on you and sniff your legs and do all these things. When it's really just like you're thinking like, will you get your fucking dog away from me? Your dog's cute, but I don't want a dog all over my shit right now. I'm trying to eat, or I'm trying to have my coffee or whatever. But you know that thing, or you have a dog where it maybe doesn't get along great with other dogs or whatever, and the other dog comes over to your dog, and you're giving that look to the owner like, can we not do this? But she's like, oh, these dogs, she's learning about other dogs, and they always have that same smile of like, isn't this curiosity so wonderful? It's the same thing with parents. Parents do the same fucking thing. Isn't this curiosity so wonderful? While this child is picking up my bean bags that are part of my score. And I need them where they are so I can remember where we're at in this game, picking up my bean bags. And the mom is just laughing. Oh, she's curious. She's so cute. And so we kind of just fudged that round. We made up our score. We estimated it. We started another round, hoping that they would get the point. Obviously they didn't. So at the end of the next round, we had to do the same thing, kind of like guess whatever our score was, because this child, this 3 or 4-year-old child, every time we throw the bag down there and it lands, she chases it like a fucking dog. She chases it. There, it's landing right there. It's by the hole. That's, 2 points or whatever it is that has to stay there. But here she comes running over and picks it up and throws it across the yard. Granted, it's a 3-year-old, so she can only throw it about 7 feet, 5 feet maybe. But it's still inconvenient to me right now as I'm focused on this game. I'm drunk. I'm trying to smoke a cigarette and get drunk at a party where there's a keg. And this child, in my opinion at this point, this child is the one that doesn't fit in to the situation. It's not me. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do right now. So I yell out to this child in the most affectionate, compassionate way I can. Again, I like children. I like them. I don't like them as much as dogs, but I like them somewhat for the most part. I still can, okay, maybe I don't like them, but I still have compassion. I still want them to grow up to be, humans and do good things. So I yell across to this child in the most sort of affectionate way I can. I say, little girl, you better be careful over there. These things come in kind of fast sometimes. You don't want to get hurt. And I waited. I waited for the mom to catch the hint and pull the child away from our game that we were playing. And I don't know, send it over to how about a swing set? There's a fucking swing set 10 feet away. Can't you go over there? But no, she doesn't. So I say, you know what? I've had enough. And I threw my next toss. It landed on the board, and I was positive that the child was going to go looking for my beanbag. She was going to race after my beanbag. So I aimed perfectly, by the way, in regards to the small 4-year-old child. I took a beanbag, I kind of readied myself in a position, and right as the little 4-year-old girl was running at the board to pull my beanbag off of it and fuck up my score, I fucking wung this beanbag as fast as I could at waist level. I didn't lob it like you would in that game. Line drive, waist level, fast as I could. The thing was screaming across the yard, but I aimed it perfectly to miss the child's head by about a foot or maybe 2. So I had done right by this, okay? I was not in the wrong. I flung this beanbag as hard as I could. We now interrupt your show for this short disclaimer from your host. Hey guys, Tony here. Listen, it would be in my interest to make something very clear to you at this point in the story. I did not ever, at any point, have any intention of hurting anybody. Nobody. I did not want to hurt the child. I did want to barely miss the child with a beanbag because I wanted to scare the child so that the child would choose that this was not a safe place or a fun place to be, and it would go elsewhere to do its playing. That's all. Never, ever did I have any intention of hurting anybody. For the record. Okay, carry on. It was flying about a foot or two left of the child's head, right when the mother bent down ahead of the child to pick up the beanbag for the child, which I was not anticipating. I didn't see this coming. But this time, instead of the child running to the board and picking up the beanbag, this time the mother thought that she would get ahead of the game and she'd pick up the beanbag for her child and hand it to her. Meanwhile, my second beanbag is flying through the air at about 100 miles per hour. And I fucking smoked this girl right in the melon with my beanbag. I mean, it made a thud that silenced the whole entire party, and she dropped. Excuse me. It missed the kid just like it was supposed to, but it smoked this woman right in the dome and dropped her. And she started crying. And I looked around the yard. And all the children looked terrified. And all the husbands, all of my friends that I'd grown up with, all of the husbands were just looking at me like, what have you done, McNabo? What did you do? And then as I turned just a little bit further over to the porch, there were all the wives. All of them sitting legs crossed with their potato salad and their macaroni salad on their paper plates in their laps. And all of them were giving me this complete death stare. I looked straight ahead one last time at this woman down on one knee, crying. The 4-year-old child face level next to her, confused, wondering what was going on. And I put my right hand in the air, I waved to everybody, and I said, I'll let myself out, no problem, thank you for having me. And I grabbed my sweatshirt and I turned to my left just in time to see my one friend that I had there, who was like me, who was there without kids, who was just there for the keg. And just as I was leaving, I saw my friend John's face. And I've never seen somebody trying so hard not to laugh. I told him something along the lines of, I need you right now. And he followed me around the front of the house. We stood in the driveway. The people at the party in the backyard, the wives, and literally were booing us. I could hear booing coming from the backyard. So we were getting booed. We were getting booed at a barbecue by a bunch of 30-year-old women and kids kids were booing us. And I just remember thinking to myself, so many people who go through life, they never, ever been booed at a barbecue by a bunch of children and angry mothers. And I felt so lucky. And so so Dill and I finished our cigarettes and our beers, and we called a cab. Okay, and we called a cab. Whew, I gotta get it together here. We called a cab and we left. And you know, so long ago, I had this whole other thing set up that I was going to talk about, this review thing and this thing that involved music to some degree. And now that I've arrived at this place, I've decided I'm gonna just stay here, because there's another story that I probably should tell you just because it's a good story and I should tell it on my podcast. And now is a good time. It ties in perfectly with this, because this story sort of completes this painting of why I'm no longer invited or welcome to participate in cookouts or events that involve children. Here's a story about something that I regret deeply on a few different levels. I grew up in a town called Yarmouth here in Maine. Nice little coastal town, hockey town. It's what everybody did. We played hockey. The local hockey rink was in Yarmouth. All the surrounding schools and towns, you know, played youth hockey and high school hockey there. And we were just 2 towns over from another town called Falmouth. Yarmouth and Falmouth had a big rivalry. The 2 schools did not like each other, which is always nice for, you know, school sports. Now, I was unique because I lived in Falmouth for the early part of my childhood, and we moved from Falmouth to Yarmouth when I was in the 4th grade. So I kind of had friends on both sides of this rivalry. And you know, like any school rivalry, we all grew older, and after high school, after college, you know, became friends, realized we all liked each other, and, you know, shared apartments and things like that. And now everybody's just cool, but we did not like each other when we were playing hockey, soccer, baseball, things like that in high school. Just didn't like playing against each other. And that rivalry still exists, although again, it's friendly now, but the rivalry is still there. And so every year there is this alumni wiffle ball grudge match, you know, Yarmouth against Falmouth. And when this happened, this was during a time that I was touring a lot during this time. I forget who with, but I was gone almost all the time. So I was never around for this thing when it happened. And now this year, I was finally around in mid-July when the annual Yarmouth-Falmouth alumni cookout party wiffle ball game would take place. So I'm psyched. I'm fucking psyched. I'm going to this party to see all these friends I haven't seen in a long time. We're going to play this game. So I get there, and at the time, you know, not everybody, this was before the beanbag incident, and so not everybody had had a bunch of kids yet. So it wasn't overrun, it wasn't crazy. There was one 6-year-old boy there who I happened to be very fond of, and this was Jake. Jake was the son of my good friend Mark, and now Mark and I go back way back to Farm League baseball, which is like before Little League. So Mark was on my Farm League team. Mark's father was the coach of my Farm League team. And so Mark and I have, you know, swinging bats and being friends goes way back with Mark and I. And Mark decided that he wanted Jake, 6-year-old Jake, to be able to play in the game this year. Now, again, you know now how I feel about children being involved in adult things, and you know how I feel about winning at anything, how much I hate fucking losing. And now Mark wants to have Jake involved in this game. Now I know what that means. That means that Jake is going to be expected to get special treatment because he's 6. So right away, I go to the Falmouth team to fucking squash that. And I say, look, Jake can play, but if Jake wants to play, he's going to play by man's rules. And, you know, just like the rest of us. Because this is an important fucking game. This is an important rivalry. And so begrudgingly, they didn't agree. But they placated me with that sort of like, yep, sure, whatever, McNabo, sure. And so that's all I needed. And so I took my position. I was catching because I like to I like to run my mouth at the batter. I like to try to get in their head. And I'm pretty good at chirping people. So I'm catching and the game starts. And I want to say, like, again, I want to say right off the bat, I like Jake. Okay, Jake was a good kid. He wasn't, he would sit and he would engage you, have these intelligent conversations. Very good kid. I liked Jake. I just needed to make sure that we won this game. So the game starts. Everything's going as normal. It's a close game. Both teams are hitting. Both teams are scoring. And 3 innings in or whatever, well, up comes Jake. Okay. My pitcher, Mark, takes a couple steps in, and I'm thinking, oh, shit, here we go. Why are you doing this? But whatever, I don't care. And he starts throwing underhand to Jake, of course, and I count 3 strikes. And to me, that's it. He's done. But everybody wants to let Jake get a hit because he's 6. So he gets like 25 chances. And then sure enough, he finally makes contact. He just kind of like plunks one down in front of home plate. So he starts running, go Jake, go Jake. Everybody's screaming and yelling. And I jump up. I field the ball. I chase him down because I don't want to throw the ball at him, even though in wiffle ball you can throw the ball. And if you hit the runner, they're out. But I didn't want to risk that. He's a small target. So I chased him down. I tagged him on the back. I said he's out. And again, everybody sort of rolled their eyes and got kind of pissy with me. And they gave Jake first base because he's 6. You can't tag him out. He's 6. Well, I didn't understand that. I still don't agree with that. But they gave him first base. And this particular time, I said, well, whatever, that's cool. I don't have a problem with that. Whatever. We got out of the inning. Nothing happened. Later on in the game, however, we're now in the 6th of 7 innings. You play 7 innings in this game. We're in the 6th inning, and we're winning by 1 run. The score is 6-5 in favor of Yarmouth. Falmouth's got a man on third base. And by a man, I mean like an adult. They've got an adult on third base. And up comes Jake. Now, this time I'm feeling like this time things are different. We need to play this a little bit more aggressively this time. This is an important at-bat. So I walk out. I go to have a conversation with my pitcher. I say, let's strike this kid out. Let's not fuck around on this. I couldn't get him to agree with me on that, so whatever. So I said, okay, well, if you're going to do your thing here, then as soon as he hits the ball, I need you to get that thing back to me. I'm going to cover home plate. Just get the ball right back to me. Okay, so Mark agrees. That's the play. We're going to make sure we hold this runner at third because Jake's inevitably he has to get a hit, which is bullshit, but it's how it fucking is. So we're pitching 20, 30 pitches. Finally, Jake gets another hit, and it's perfect. He hits it right back to the mound. Now, here comes Arthur, I think it was. Just like we planned, he's coming in from third base. Mark goes to one-hand the ball and just sort of flick it to me. And he fucking it goes like 4 feet over my head. And this is very bad news because over my head, this is a really important part of the story. Behind home plate, where the ball went, there is an embankment. It's a steep embankment. I'd say probably goes, 10, 11 feet down from the yard level into this little village of bushes and things like that. So That's where the ball's gone. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I got to get down there and get the ball, because everybody, of course, is yelling, go Jake, go Jake. And I'm thinking, okay, he's only 6, so he's not gonna be that fast. I got time to get this ball, get back to home plate. We just got to keep him on base and try to get out of this inning. And I get down there and the ball is like fucking buried. It's like 3 feet back in these bushes. And so, you know that move that you've got to make, like you're down on your stomach, you're reaching in behind these thorn bushes to get this ball. And now I'm starting to hear it's not just go Jake, run Jake. Now it's go home Jake, go home Jake. And I'm thinking, no fucking way. No way this is happening. I'm grabbing the ball and I'm sprinting now. As fast as I can run, I am sprinting back up this little embankment. It's not a long embankment, it's just steep. So I'm sprinting up it. I have no sight line yet on the level playing field. I'm just running as fast as I can with the ball so I can be there in time to cover home plate, tag Jake out, and then we're out of this thing. So, full speed as fast as I can run. I come up over, I sort of, come over the peak of this thing and I'm back on level field just in time to realize that there's only about 5 feet between me and Jake. And I see Jake and he's running as fast as he possibly can too. And he had this smile on his face. I still remember his face. He had this smile, so happy, as full of joy and confidence and life by the balls as you will ever see a 6-year-old boy. Just pure joy, because everybody's cheering Jake, go Jake, go Jake. They're cheering him on. And as far as he sees it, he's about to score a run, which he hasn't done yet. And he's so proud. I can see it in his face. The problem is, I'm running full speed directly at Jake, and Jake's running full speed directly at me. And we've only got 5 feet to hit the brakes. This is a big problem. And I realized that, unfortunately, for both of us, I mean, again, I don't want to, I like Jake. I don't want to hurt Jake. Okay? Just remember that. But I'm realizing that Jake and I have just entered into this universe that is just our own. Right now, we are in this bubble where only Jake and I exist. And something awful is about to happen. And only Jake and I can reconcile this situation. And I realize that it's up to me to try to minimize this collision as much as I possibly can. Now, if I run straight into him, I mean, it's gonna be like a fucking football hit times 100, okay? He's 6, I'm 27 or something at this point, 175 pounds. I'm gonna hit this kid with about 6 times his weight. And so what I do is I leave my feet and I try to swing my whole body to the left. Off the ground, I try to swing myself off to the left, to the outside of the base path. And that way I can reduce this a little bit. But what ends up happening instead is it kind of became like a really, really dirty hockey check. Like when the guy leaves his feet and his shoulder kind of goes directly into the head. So my body, my feet and my legs made it to the left of the base path, but my torso stayed exactly on the same trajectory, and my shoulder and my elbow made impact with Jake's 6-year-old face and head with such force that it swung the momentum of my entire body back in the opposite direction. So my head spun back towards home plate, and I went into Jake dropped. Jake was flat out on the ground. I went through the air, did a windmill, a 180 in the air windmill, before finally coming to rest and landing on my stomach right next to Jake. And I did that thing where if you've had older or younger brothers or sisters, or just as little kids, you know, when you've done something terrible to another little kid and you know it, and there's that, you hear that that inhale, and there's that space between the inhale where you don't really know what's going to happen on the exhale. And I did that thing. I had my face still in the grass. I hadn't looked up, and I was just sort of covering my face, and I quietly said, just don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And sure enough, Jake lets out this just wailing sob. And I think, oh shit. And I look over at Jake, who's laying on his back right on the third base line. And his mouth is busted wide open. He's got blood in his teeth. He's got blood coming down his chin. Now, not blood in his teeth. Like, I didn't do any like dental work. I didn't hurt his teeth or anything like that. But you know, when you get your lip busted real bad, and like blood's just everywhere. It's in your mouth. It's in your teeth. Like, we've all seen it. And so, but not on a 6-year-old boy. This was a first for me. And he had blood in his teeth, and his whole mouth was fucked up. And I felt so small. I felt like the smallest man on the entire planet Earth. And he's crying. And I felt terrible. I know you don't believe me, but I did. I really, I felt terrible. And I looked up, and every single guy on the field, whether they were from Falmouth or from Yarmouth, everybody on the field was just staring at me, straight in the eye. No one was saying anything. They were just looking at me, shaking their heads, including Mark, Jake's father. And Amanda came down from the porch to retrieve Jake, and she did that thing, you know, how a mother picks up a child with, you know, the head over one arm and the feet over the other arm. And she carried little Jake off the field. He's bleeding badly from the mouth, and he's crying. And I don't blame him. And I just lay there feeling very badly. And then as soon as Jake was being carried off field, and everybody clapped, you know, everybody did that thing where they clapped for him. That a boy, Jake, you're going to be okay. And you know what? I felt like, and I still feel like, that clap was less for encouragement for Jake as much as it was to spite me. That's what was really happening. It was this passive aggressive way of telling me kind of to fuck off. And you know, I always took that personally. I still do. I didn't like that those guys did that, including my own teammates. But as that died down and I lay there in the grass on my stomach, in that moment, this lightness came over me. And I realized something so important. Just this moment of clarity. And I realized that I was still holding the ball. I had held the ball. Through the whole entire collision, I had held on to the ball. And I remember I rolled over on my back, and slowly I lifted the ball up into the air to show that I was still holding it. And like before I could even get my hand all the way raised, immediately I heard somebody, I don't even know which team they were on, but just immediately I remember somebody being like, no, do not fucking even think about doing that, McNabo. And I slowly kind of up on my elbow turned to everybody with the ball, and I said, he's out. And you can imagine how unpopular of a thing this was to say at this point, but I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the score of the game and the fact that, you know, we need to win this thing. There's one inning left, and this is an important play. So I get up, you know, and no one's thinking about me. And like, I'm hurt too. right? I just had this collision. My elbow and shoulder just went full speed, full contact into the skull of a 6-year-old boy. Okay, and then I'm spinning around in the air. I land on my stomach. My ribs hurt. My elbow hurts. I'm fucking hurt. No one cares about me. This is all just about Jake. And so I go out to the field and I go to have a meeting with Mark, and I try to apologize to Mark, but I don't think it mattered. I don't think he believed me very much. And I suggested that he be out, and that was met with such aggressive opposition. I very quickly realized that I wasn't going to win that argument. And the thing that really bothered me about it is that it wasn't just the Falmouth kids. It was my own teammates. My own teammates were sort of lobbying for Jake's run to count. And I still resent them for that. I lost a lot of respect for a lot of those guys when they did that. And obviously, as you could probably guess, Jake's run stayed on the board. So we've gone from having the run from third obviously scored. So now we're in a tie game. I did everything I could do. I put myself in danger to make sure that I got that ball to home plate, covered home plate, and tagged Jake out. Now, if maybe it injured him badly. That wasn't my intention. It happened, and but I tagged him out. But no, that doesn't matter anymore. So now all of a sudden we're trailing. We're trailing with 1 inning left. We're trailing 7-6. The next inning took place. I don't know if, I think my team had lost a lot of steam after this whole incident. I'm not sure they still cared about winning, which again, I resent them for. I think everybody was sort of shaken up by seeing a 6-year-old with a bloody face, and rightfully so. I was shaken up too. No one cares about me. I was laying right next to him. I saw it closer than anybody. But you don't see me getting up there and just like being like, oh, I don't care anymore. I just want this game to be over with. No, I still wanted to fucking win. And I was probably the only one. And as a result, we didn't win that game. And I'm still pissed off about it. I'm still pissed off about it because he was out. Well, I don't want to say that he was out because that puts this all. He is out. Jake is still out. That was a bullshit call. And in my mind, we could have won that game. And, here's what I think. I think that Mark and Amanda missed. Mark, who I love. Mark and Amanda, who I love. I think they missed a really great opportunity that day to have a teachable moment. And, show Jake that sometimes you don't score the run. Sometimes you don't win the game. Sometimes you get hurt playing sports, and that just goes along with it. It's part of life, That's what I probably would have said to him if I was in that situation. But instead he got carried off the field. He could have gotten up. I mean, I hit him in the mouth. Okay. You can still stand up with your mouth full of blood and blood coming down your chin, and you can still stand up. And in fact, you can still put a towel on your face and you can still finish the game, in my opinion. But no, they came down, they carried him off the field, and then they still gave him the run, and he still got to taste victory. You know what? Frankly, I know this is a terrible thing to say, but all Jake really should have tasted that day was his own blood. He had no business tasting victory that day. That was my victory that I should have been delighting in the flavor of that afternoon. But instead, it was Jake. Okay, so that's that. And again, I'm still mad about it. But I do, I feel sort of bad about it. Now, Jake now, here's the thing about it now. Jake now is like, Jake's about 16, 17 years old now. Jake's a fucking big boy. Jake's a big kid. He's a big, athletic, strong kid. And I have this fear sometimes when I see pictures of him. I haven't seen him in person since this incident took place. I think there's probably reasons for that, but I worry sometimes that Jake will one day come for me to avenge that whole day. And you know what? Rightfully so, if he does. he would be well within his rights to do that, and would probably hurt me very, very badly if he wanted to. So, and on that note, I'd like to just say, Jake, if you're listening, band, could I get some music, please? Thank you. Hey, Jake. Man, been a long time, huh? I know. I miss you. And I just want to tell you how that I'm sorry for how things went that afternoon, and that I love you, Jake. I love you. Your mother and your father are longtime dear friends of mine. They've been so good to me over the years, and they have done such a great job raising you. What a handsome and charismatic young man you've turned out to be, and as you become a man, I hope that you'll understand that sometimes, as a man, Jake, as a man, sometimes you have to make great sacrifices to win a wiffle ball game or to win anything. Sometimes it comes with great sacrifice, and you just happened to be that sacrifice that day. I didn't mean to hurt you, buddy. I didn't mean it. I really have felt badly about it. I mean, I still see your face sometimes. At night I wake up and so many times I've had to relive that moment, and it makes me feel, and I feel awful, Jake. It makes me feel awful, and I've had to live with this, Jake. I've had to live with this. And I just hope that, by me saying that I'm sorry to you, that, frankly, I'm sorry that your father put you in that position. I blame your father, Jake, okay? Your father, you never should have been in that game. And if you had to be in that game, honestly, somebody should have held you at third base, okay? And if that's not, I can't do anything about that. If somebody neglected to hold you up at third base as they should have, that's probably their fault. Find out who your third base coach was, or if it was your dad or whoever was. Everybody was telling you to run, Jake. I mean, I don't blame you. Everybody was telling you to run home. What could you have done? But I just hope that that it makes you feel better to hear me say that I'm sorry. And I'm not sorry, literally sorry, but I mean, like, I'm sorry that it happened to you. And I just hope it makes you feel better to hear me say that. And to hear you say this too. I love you, Jake. I love you. And I've never forgotten about you. I've never forgotten about that day. And I hope I see you again one day, and that we can shake hands like men, and we can put this behind us, okay? And I hope you feel better hearing this. I know I feel better, and that's really the important thing right now. Is I feel much better already about the whole thing. Just to tell this story and to speak to you in a forum like this, I feel much better, and that's what's important. So let's just let's move on now, okay? Now that's done. Okay, you can stop now. So there was that, and that's how you end up going from having a lot of great friends in life and having a really good reputation to no longer being invited to parties or cookouts or anything where people have their kids around, or where they just want to, anywhere where people want to gather, not have to listen to fair warning with me throwing shit around and trying to start trouble and make people do shots. Then I don't get invited. And I'll tell you something, again, going back to if you're under 25 listening to this, I'll tell you something, it never happens anymore. No one ever wants that from me. And it's a really difficult way to live. It's a lonely place to be. And like Whitney Houston, it's a lonely place to be, and so I've learned to depend on me. So here I am. Now I have a podcast. I sit here and I drink Pabst Blue Ribbon by myself, and I tell these stories. No one ever thinks about how lonely I am or how sad I am. All these friends with their kids and their boats and their lifestyles. they think like, oh, this is Tony's, Tony doesn't know how to behave, and we're better off without Tony around. But no one ever stops to think about, that I now don't have anybody. Even my friends that are in bands that don't have kids or girlfriends or anything, like nobody really wants to ever party the way that I want to party anymore. It's sad, and I'd like to think that maybe some of those people would think about me sometimes and how it makes me feel. That's all. Okay, so fuck it. I'm putting all that behind me, and I'm going to move on now to my music of the week, because this was another big week. I have been so blessed with 2 great weeks in a row. I know it was a few weeks back where Ray LaMontagne and Michael Ralt put out music, and I'm still loving both those records. But I said in my last episode, when I did declare that Michael Ralt, A New Day Tonight, was going to be my favorite record of 2018, and that there was just a couple people that might have something to say to that. And I mentioned that Father John Misty was one of those people because he had this new record coming up, which is now out. But I wasn't optimistic. I was skeptical that anybody was going to be able to pull this off. Well, I want to say that Michael Ralt held the best record of 2018 for exactly 1 week. And then Father John Misty put out God's Favorite Customer. I'm going to take a whiz. I'm going to drink a Pabst Blue Ribbon, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about God's Favorite Customer by Father John Misty, because there is so much to talk about. So I'll be right back, okay? In the meantime, classywino.com. Now, say you're like me and you're just trying to find some parking lot somewhere off the beaten path where the police won't fuck with you, so that you can drink your beer or your vodka tonics or your wine, and you don't want to have to worry about dropping the glass on the ground and breaking it. Maybe you're sitting in your yard with your kids at a fucking cookout, and you're drinking wine, obviously, and you don't want to worry about the kids breaking the glass or things like that. Check out classywino.com. They make these squishy cups. They're like these silicone wine glass cocktail cups, pint glasses. They can't be broken. Go check out classywino.com. classywino.com. I'm going to go take a whiz. I'll be right back. The first time I heard Father John Misty, I was in Los Angeles, and I was on tour playing drums for a kid named Gavin Castleton, who's from Portland, Oregon. And if you don't know Gavin Castleton, then as soon as you're done checking out Sarah Halley Richardson and Jaw Gems, go check out Gavin Castleton. So I was out with those guys, and we had a day off in LA, and I went to go and meet with my friend Tom. And Tom was with Network during this time, and I was trying to get Tom to come out to the show, and I was just sitting in his office. We were old friends from way back with Rustic Overtones, who I've talked about before, my first band, and we've just sort of stayed in contact through all of our endeavors and all of that, and I love Tom. So I'm in Tom's office, and I'm like, well, this tour is going to be wrapping up in another 5 weeks or whatever, and then I'm going to be looking for some more shit. So if you know of anything, let me know. And he kind of like rubbed his chin, and he was like, man, I think you'd really like this Father John Misty thing. But he goes, I think he's got a drummer, which he did and which he does, and his drummer fucking rules. So obviously this never panned out, but he still was like, check this out. And he played me this video of Father John Misty doing Bored in the USA on the David Letterman show. You can probably find it very easily. And I thought there was this very sarcastic making fun of show business, making fun of just entertainment that really like appealed to me. And so I was intrigued, and so when I got back to the bus that night, and I grabbed a beer and my camping chair that I always travel with, and I went out and I sat in the parking lot and I started listening to Father John Misty stuff. And right away I was like, okay, this is cool, the production's cool and all that stuff, but I started really listening to the lyrics, and I was like, man, this is something that nobody else is doing. Like, we're in this culture where everything is like a safe space and everything needs to not be challenged. And that's something that I fucking hate, as most of like my closest friends know and are annoyed by. And this guy was not only making music that was incredibly artistic and well produced and everything else, but the themes of his songs and his lyrics were challenging these otherwise safe narratives that we're supposed to just sort of leave alone. And he was sort of like, fuck that, I'm going to dig into them because I disagree or whatever. And I was immediately drawn to that, enamored and just fanatic about this dude, right? But now I'm hooked. And I also know, because I met with my friend Tom, and I know that he's got a tour coming up, and that means he's got a new record coming out. So I'm waiting for this new record. And then finally it came out. And this was one record ago. This is not the new one that just hit last week. He put out this record called Pure Comedy. Now, I'm going to pull up a chair for this. Pure Comedy hit me at a time where I had a complete and total falling out with Christianity or any organized religion, any religion at all. This is a good time to tell you that for like 10 or 12 years of my life, I was devoutly religious. The way this happened is a podcast in itself. How did I go from being committed to Christianity to now being a person who is so angry about the years that I wasted being committed to such a bunch of sheepish, fearful, guilt-driven indoctrination into a life of complete fucking servitude, and a servitude that discourages you from any human thought and idea that you have, these great, incredible, creative ideas that you have just by being alive and by being a human being. And it scares you out of allowing yourself to pursue or follow or even just exist in any of those thoughts. You have to put them away. Ugh. I mean, again, it's a whole nother podcast in itself, and I hope someday I get to it. But it all brings me to Father John Misty at just exactly the right time in my life. And when Pure Comedy came out, Pure Comedy by Father John Misty, the previous record, is it is like, I've described it to my friends in two different ways. It's like reading an incredible book that is so heavy with sarcasm and critical thinking and a perspective on things that we all know to be true and normal and commonplace, and it turns it such on its ear that you have to constantly be going back 2 or 3 pages and reading it again to continue from where you are. I've read a lot of fucking awesome books that are that way, and that's what that record is like. I have to, from a lyrical perspective, somebody who's like intensely into lyrics. I have a lot of friends who aren't. They're just kind of focused on the music, and that's sort of the great thing with Father John Misty, is that it's both. It satisfies both things. But from a lyrical perspective, that record, Pure Comedy, I probably listened to it 20 to 25 times just in order to sort of break down in my head exactly where he was going with everything. I had to keep going back to understand exactly what he meant by a certain lyric, because it was way beyond a traditional lyric. Like, he is not coming from a place that anybody else is coming from anymore. It's like watching a great comic. You know, when you see like a great comic who's not just giving like bits but they're actually just pacing around a stage, breaking down, you know, societal things. Dave Chappelle comes to mind. David Cross comes to mind. And you have to actually, you can't just sit there and laugh. You can't just sit there and listen. You have to think. You really get challenged to think critically about how you view things and how you have viewed things and everything else. And he did that on Pure Comedy in such an incredibly, like, in a genius way. And it was largely our societal and cultural sort of shortcomings here in America and in the world, but it was specifically about how that's tied to religion and how the fact that we have all, through generations and generations and generations, hundreds of generations, we've somehow continued to believe these fucking things. I still listen to religious radio, like religious talk radio, but I don't listen to it so I can be like, yep. I listen to it because it's just like, it makes me, like, I laugh out loud now. I can't believe that people still believe all this shit. And this record, Pure Comedy, came along for me as a person that was falling out of all this stuff. It came along at a perfect time where it was sort of like my companion. And not only was it my companion, it was coming from somebody who was delivering it from a place of real, true thoughtfulness. This isn't just somebody shitting on this thing. This is a person who, you know, apparently, like, he went to like a Catholic school the same way that I did. Like, he was indoctrinated into all of this shit, and he spent a lot of his life, and he was saying all the things that I wanted to say, but I'm just not good enough to have said things the way he said them. And I'll just say, if you're a person who is in that same situation, you've got to get yourself aligned with Father John Misty and the music that he's making. And if you're a person who staunchly disagrees with me on all of that, well, also listen to that record, Pure Comedy, and listen to what he says and really think about it and go in with an open mind. Because I think he refutes some things in a way that is, you know, both humorous and sometimes beautiful, but all the while very, very true. And that's the important thing. You can't just come out, whether you're a comic or whether you're a musician or whether you're an author or whatever, you can't just come out and start breaking these things down and saying that they're not legitimate unless you have very legitimate points as to why they're not legitimate. You know, it's like that saying of, like, you can make a joke about this thing that is sort of not supposed to be treaded upon. It's fine to joke about being handicapped or to joke about race or to joke about, you know, these different things that are sort of taboo. You can do it if you want to, but if you do it, it better be fucking funny. And if it is funny, then nobody can really deny it. It's sort of like, okay, well, that's funny. It's sort of true, right? But if you try to do it and it's not funny and it's not intelligent and it's not creative, then you have really failed yourself and you're going to end up in a lot of trouble and you're going to become pretty unpopular. So he's executed this from a lyrical perspective where I think that And I'd love to talk to people from both sides about that record someday. I can think of a couple friends off the top of my head that would make good panelists on either side of that discussion, and I'd love to do that someday. But then getting into the music, it's also like some of the craziest production that I've ever heard in my life. And still, I listen to that record. And if I let myself, like, again, every couple months, I fucking smoke a little weed. I listen to music, all the same music that I've always listened to, but I start hearing all these different things. And if I ever find myself at a party or I find myself real high all of a sudden for whatever reason, pretty much all I ever want to do is crawl off somewhere and find someplace comfortable to sit, and I want to listen to Pure Comedy by Father John Misty. So the thing is that I haven't even gotten to his new record yet. The new record came out, and I'm thinking, like I said in the last episode, he won't outdo Pure Comedy. Like, he can't. It's not possible. So the theme of this new record is less a theme of religion and rejection of that. But apparently he had gone through this separation from his wife, checked himself into a hotel in New Orleans. I don't want to tell his story. I won't attempt to tell his story on this, but the theme is definitely a theme of a separation of people who love each other and one person's journey to just sort of come off the rails in the process of that, in hopes of finding their way back. That's how I interpret this new record, and that's something that I can relate to intensely. Again, nothing to do with any of the shit from the last record. It's just this other theme that it also happens that I can relate to intensely right now in my life. And the production is, I'll say, as good as Pure Comedy was. I mean, if you're just a fan of like great recordings and all this ear candy that you can hear in your headphones and stereo on either side of your head, it's endless. I'll say this, the tambourine playing on this record, anybody who's ever made a recording with me in a studio knows that I'm always trying to find a place to fit in some tambourine. I think the tambourine is one of the most important fucking instruments in the world. And not only that, but you have to be good. You can't fucking fake the tambourine. The tambourine is a difficult instrument. We've been dumbed down by the tambourine because so many girls in the 80s and I guess in the 90s and 70s, like we need a cute girl in the band. She can sing a little bit. What do? Give her a tambourine. Well, everybody's going to hear her shitty tambourine playing. No, that's not true. Everybody hold on. That's not true. She's going to play the tambourine on her hip. And there's no microphone on her hip. You won't even hear the thing. So that's what we've always thought the tambourine is just this girl with big hair singing backup vocals and hitting it on her hip. But in all the recordings we've heard our whole life, from the 70s to now, pop music, R&B music, anything, when the hook happens, you're hearing a tambourine most times. Like, the tambourine is hugely important. I fucking love the tambourine. And the tambourine playing on God's Favorite Customer from Father John Misty is the sickest tambourine playing I've ever heard in my life, right from the first song. The first song on the record is the illest tambourine take that has ever happened in the history of the instrument. Keep laughing, keep thinking the tambourine's not a real instrument. Listen to the first song from Father John Misty and tell me that you could live with it without the tambourine. You can't, you couldn't, and you won't try to tell me that. So there's that. There's also the fact that it's an absolutely fucking heartbreaking album. If you happen to be going through some things, as I am, and you're relating to this theme, these songs fuck you up so bad, because the same way that he was able to verbalize these feelings about Christianity and these feelings about he's just incredibly good with words. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that he's tripping all the time. He's constantly on LSD. It makes me want to get on LSD. I've never tripped in my life, and this guy's inspiring me. Like, I think I'm probably, I don't know, I'm going to give it another year, and then I'm just, if I don't feel quite right exactly about everything, I'm just going to start tripping all the time, just like Josh Tillman. But his lyrics are insane. His way of expressing an idea and a thought and an image is fucking crazy. So there's these ballads. I love all the songs. They're all great, but the ballads on this record are insane. The first one is called Just Dumb Enough to Try. The second verse in that song, I'm not going to give it away, and I'm not going to say what the lyric is. I'm just going to say that it's one of the most incredible verses and collections of words to express something that I've ever heard in my life. Once I heard that, I mean, I was locked into the record completely at that point. The second verse of Just Dumb Enough to Try is fucking stupid. It's insanely good. The other ballad is Please Don't Die. The melody of the hook, when it finally hits the theme, please don't die, wherever you, I mean, it's just so well written. It's so well recorded, and the sentiment is great. It blew my mind. And so I guess what I'm getting at is that Josh Tillman did do what I thought would be impossible, and he did deliver a new Father John Misty record to me that was not only as good, but at times I like it even better than pure comedy. And I'm ready to call Josh Tillman one of the geniuses of our time. I don't fucking care if you agree with me or not. This is my show. I can say that. Josh Tillman is one of the very, very few geniuses that are among us. People that are taking music and they are pushing the boundaries of what you can say and what you can do with it. It's a brave thing to do. Not enough people are able to do it. I think a lot of people want to do it, you know, so I'm not saying he's alone in wanting to do it. I think we all want to do that, but he just does it so fucking well. So, I don't know what else I can say about it. Father John Misty, God's favorite customer. You gotta go and get your hands on that. I'm fucking smoked, man. That's that. I'm gonna get out of here now. I'll talk with you next time. Everybody, please take care of yourselves. Pick each other up when you need to be picked up. But at the same time, don't treat each other like a bunch of pussies. Let each other pick themselves up when they need to and when they can. But stop just, you know, not ever allowing each other to have to struggle. We all have to struggle. Struggling's fucking beautiful. You don't get any better if you don't struggle. We gotta let each other struggle. But just know when it's time to pick them up, that's all. It's like a mosh pit, right? Hey? It's exactly how it works in a mosh pit. You do your thing, you get hurt, you get bumped up, you get knocked down. Everybody can see you doing it. But they look at you, they're like, they're all right, they're all right, they're all right. There comes a time when like you actually do need to get picked up. And you know what? All those other people that are throwing their shit around and trying to kill other people, they get real soft for a second. They stop everything and everybody does come over and pick you up. And then they go back to moshing and they go back to fucking trying to murder each other. That's life. At least that's how it should be. That's how I like it anyway. Okay. You've probably heard enough of me by now. And so I love you, and I'll talk with you again the next time. Email me. I love your show, Tony, @gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from all of you guys. Okay, you guys, good night.